Hello, everybody. I'm Courtney. Sean's always late as usual. But how's everybody doing? This weather is crazy. Right now, it's like 60 degrees. This is stupid. Like, I don't even. Why is the golly right here? Like, why is he right here?
Hello, everyone.
Apparently, we now have a third guest, the golly and Sean. But anyway, we got a few people watching. I'm not going to make everybody wait because I know I've gotten a lot of messages about tonight's guest. We are welcoming to our show. Yes, Paul. Oh my. We don't know what Sean's doing. Hey, Ronnie.
Don't tell me y'all offended. we ain't got time to be offended. All right, we're not getting offended tonight.
Without further ado, I'm welcoming to the show author, psychic medium, and demonologist.
He's the man,
Sean Austin. Hey, Sean.
How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you doing?
And he spells it the right way.
The Irish way.
That's right.
Did you get my message earlier with the kangaroo putting the dog in a headlock? Paul, yes. I've seen this video. Okay, Sean, this is a rollover from last week's podcast. We were talking about kangaroos and fighting kangaroos. I know that's completely outside of the norm of a paranormal podcast, but Paul has kangaroos like in his backyard, like where he lives. So I wanted to know, just for everybody's sake, like, have you ever gotten into a fight with a kangaroo? So, long story short,
Sean is like, what are y'all talking about?
Sean, this is a no bars held podcast.
No bars.
Hey, whatever is not normal, paranormal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not Paul. Paul, somebody had kangaroos in their background. Hey, John. Shout out Fredericksburg Paranormal.
What's up, John?
Shout out Bedford Paranormal.
Bedrock.
Well, I am going to cut straight to the chase. You are a man with many hats. You're an author. How many books do you have out?
I wrote two.
Two. What are the names?
Shadow Chaser and Shadow Chaser, The In-Between.
Okay. And where can somebody find these books if they wanted to purchase them?
I mail out signed books anywhere in the U.S. for my website, Sean D. Austin, like my screen name on the screen. Otherwise, you can get it off Amazon.
Okay. Awesome. You're also a psychic medium or just a medium, or how do you label that?
I guess it's the same thing. It's just being sensitive to spirits, being able to hear spirits talk and see images. It's all over the map, but it's definitely medium abilities. Kind of just progressed and, happened as I delved into the paranormal. I kind of had a spiritual awakening as I started to get into the paranormal.
Okay. And you're a demonologist.
Yes. I was mentored under Ralph Sarchi, was the inspiration for the 2014 film Deliver Some Evil. That was the first TV show I was on, The Demon Files, which originally aired on Destination America, came on Travel Channel, now on Discovery Plus. So, yes, I approached the cases from the way that Ralph had actually, mentored me how to approach those cases when you're dealing with a legitimate, genuine demonic haunting. So that's typically what I do when I'm helping a residential type case.
Okay. So you're still actively investigating demonic locations.
Yes, if they arise and are genuine and people need help and I'm able to, then I would definitely go and do that. I just went on a really, really dark case in Ohio, actually, that was definitely one for the books from, knowing what actually happened in the past. It was straight out of a horror movie. It's truly just unfathomable, some of the things that can happen to people throughout the years, especially with the locations and the energy that it leaves behind too, with some of these energies, whether they're there from the history or from the invitations that they're invited in from other actions of other people with occult types of actions. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. And you said this was in Ohio?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, we love to hear about it. If you can.
Yeah. Are you able to share about it at all?
I'll get in a little to it. Some of it's so dark, I probably wouldn't even want to mention it. But this mother's mother, who's the grandmother to these children, she was dabbling in sex magic in this house, and they would have those types of parties going on. I think she was kind of involved in a biker type lifestyle. And when this child was growing up, would walk by this garage and hear someone whimpering, and walked into the garage, and like a gentleman was tied up and saw blood on his chest, and some sort of like bondage type things going on. There was just torture and magic and really dark stuff that was going on there. There was someone that actually unalived themselves in the house. And one of the daughters, after the grandmother had actually passed away, who was involved in this stuff, moved into an apartment and took some of the furniture from the property and also a picture frame. Now, this picture frame, the bullet from this person unaliving themselves went through this frame. She had set up some of the stuff in her apartment. When she came back, there were footprints and handprints all over her walls. When she came back, and she immediately got rid of all the furniture. There's just a lot. There's just a lot of really dark stuff. But I felt dirty, like after leaving that place. It was just really icky and gross. Just picking up what I felt sensitive wise and knowing what actually happened there and the stuff that was coming through. It was truly disturbing stuff. But these types of cases I think are important, as horrific as they are, to try to bring awareness to what you can bring into your life if you choose with your free will to bring some of that darkness into your life. It's not a game, as much as it may feel like to some people, but there's real stakes at hand, way beyond this life. And I think that case is definitely an example of that. Now, I did live stream some of it, but I'm going to put together some of the interviews that I did with the family, some of their stories, and then put it up on my YouTube page to kind of give a little bit more of a broader spectrum of what was going on and what we experienced that night.
Can you see the comments?
Ryan, what's up, man?
And then we have one from D.
Okay, do you ever fear being taken over spiritually by demonic forces? Now, it's interesting enough is that I do believe I have the ability to channel spirits through myself, but I'll feel something and I don't let it go further than that. My faith is what really protects me. People, I get that question all the time, like, don't you get frightened? You get scared? And I think at this point, I have to differentiate between being scared and I can get startled. I can get startled, but if I get scared, what does that mean? That means that I truly don't believe that God is more powerful than any devil, demon, or diabolical force. So when you actually, are frightened, these things can sense that around your aura, and they can use that to their advantage to attack you further, because there is a crack in your protection. So that's something to be mindful of. That's why I always make that metaphor. If God told you to walk from the top of a mountain to another mountain and there's no bridge there, that first step is either going to make you drop to the bottom of the mountain, or you're going to get to across the mountain. That's true faith. So if you stand in front of an evil spirit and you truly believe that God is more powerful than that, this thing will not be able to idealistically do to you what it wants to do to you.
I 100% agree with that, like wholeheartedly. I think that
I love that answer.
Yeah, I think that if you're a paranormal investigator, period, I feel like you have to, that goes hand in hand with faith, like, because you really don't know whether it's, somebody simply saying, I'm hearing footsteps, knocks, voices, whatever, or I've got a demonic presence. Like, you really never know what you're going into. And so I think it's really important to keep faith in this field, as a whole.
Well, yeah. If you believe in the spiritual side of things, you consider yourself spiritual. If you're open to the idea of them actually being spiritual energies or ghosts, as we call them, the earthbound ones, then you'd have to believe in some sort of higher power and energy. So where are you going to go with that? And the bottom line is, if you're dealing with something that's dark, or something that's oppressive or has malicious, malevolent intent, how are you going to combat that? Because you can't fight that with physical muscles, with your muscles or like a weapon. It's not a physical weapon. It's a spiritual muscle. And how do you protect yourself from that? And that's what it is. And that's really how it's been according to my life. I was brought up Catholic and stuff when I was a child, but witness things that are truly evil and watch them react negatively of things of religious significance. That is why my faith is so strong to this day. I mean, I wear a St. Michael pendant around my neck that's been blessed, considered a third-class relic. I mean, I that's why I probably survived up into this point, whether, legitimately just living or dying, or the fact of like mentally, because these things can mentally break you down. I've been oppressed before. It's no walk in the park. And that's probably the most delicate nature of the paranormal, is that these things can be invited in just from one night trying to say, do something to me. And 5-10 years later, they can just say, well, it's time to open up that invitation when you have no clue. It had something to do with years before, but it has invitation to cause that havoc, because these things have purpose. Their definitive purpose is to cause chaos within you and everyone around you, and ultimately making an example out of you and say, look up to God and say, look, this is why, God, you shouldn't have created man. Because man is capable of evil, but man is also capable of good. And, that's the kind of like that yin and yang kind of thing we got going on this planet. And there's really, truly dark, evil things that happen in this world, but, there's some real good stuff too. But there's always a battle of good and evil going on, whether you see it physically or behind the curtain, so to speak, under the veil. It's going on.
That's deep.
That is deep.
That's very deep.
I love that answer. People ask us all the time the same question. And it's always that's what I always give them, pretty much a similar answer, the walk with faith. Have you ever used your walk with faith to combat the demons you encounter?
Well, I think, me personally, I don't even know if there's anybody else out there that would be considered a medium, but also a demonologist, because that's kind of like a thing too. I didn't expect to be a demonologist. I didn't even know what it would entail getting that name or that, but when Ralph told me, some of his stature and who mentored me, like, Sean, you're a demonologist, I approached that and I had to take that title because he told me I didn't know what he was supposed to do. But the thing is that I'm being sensitive to spiritual, having discernment, and being able to see this stuff and tap into the emotions of spirits and even the evil stuff kind of puts me in more of a dangerous situation than your average person, because I can really pick up on these things. I see these things. I have seen evil demonic forces. I have seen them up close and personal, what they look like and everything. So it's definitely more of a challenge to really get through some of that stuff. But I mean, I've witnessed many times my faith come into play. I always bring up this example of this poor girl that was messed around with dark magic, who did a blood ritual in satanic nature. And she was going through really the most horrific thing I could ever. That was the first or only actually legitimate demonic possession I've actually dealt with up until this day. It was just really just mind blowing. She would call me and she'd be down south, and she'd be going into a trance. And I this time I was just starting to learn about demonology. I wasn't really like prepared to deal with something of that stature or that level. I think it was a little higher above my spiritual pay grade, so to speak. But this girl was pregnant while she was possessed, and she was calling me up, speaking in other languages, and some of it I couldn't understand. And I'd actually record some of the conversations, and I realized that she was speaking in some of the portions of the sentences in English backwards, and it was referencing her about exorcism and things of that nature. And I'll never forget this one night. I was praying for her on the phone, and she was she went into a dark trance. I couldn't hear anything. I just started praying. And then it's just like a 23-year-old girl is all of a sudden like, right out of a movie. It's like a dark male voice, like, Sean, she's mine. And, I had a cross like 6 inches, like this big. Now this girl can't see me on the phone. It's on a normal phone call. This is back in 2014, something like that. And, as soon as I put the cross up to the phone, she hissed at me. And it's just like I had chills to the bone that night, and how chilling truly that is. But when you take a step back and realize what that actually means, is experiences like that actually brings such validity to my faith, and why I use that in my spiritual work that I'm doing to this day, because that thing reacted negatively of that cross, and somehow it is going right up against the phone. And that was pretty interesting. And I've had quite a few things like that throughout the years. These things scurry away at the sight of God. They talk about how much they hate Jesus and the Blessed Mother and things like that. And especially also too about how I approach the paranormal, which I don't see many people do either, is really trying to offer to help spirits cross into the light, rather than just treating them like a gerbil in a cage and say, do a backflip for us. That's great. We get on camera and I get great content and lots of views. But in the end, these people are actually human, like we were living still in the physical plane right now. And I think that's why I get a lot of more reciprocal evidence overall than some people, is because I have genuine intent. I go in there and I think that they can actually see this around you as a person, as an individual, the aura around you as a person. And they know that you have genuine intent and willingness to actually try to help them and vocalize the fact that you have a mutual respect for these spirits and you're willing to try to help them. And they'll be more willing to use their energy to actually come forward and use that energy to communicate with you, whether it's, you as a sensitive or through the devices or some of the bells and whistles we use or making noise in general, rather than just the ones that are just super desperate or ones that are evil, just trying to play with you or try to be invited in.
Now, how do you handle something, though, if you go into a location and they're like, I don't want the location cleansed, like, I don't want the spirits to cross over. I don't want that. I just want confirmation, because then at that point, then it becomes your example of a gerbil in a cage, do a backflip type deal, because, I'm trying to give you confirmation that your location's haunted, or you have a haunting of some sort at your location, but, you don't want me to help it cross over. You don't want it cleansed. You don't want anything other than confirmation.
Yeah, we hear that a lot.
Yeah, we actually experience
I know that some locations are kind of like that. I mean, I wouldn't want to have the spiritual responsibility of doing something like that if someone could come in there and actually help the souls, because I believe that these places will still be haunted. I mean, any situation like that typically would be a location that just has people come in and they've turned it into a business where they're actually letting people do paranormal research like that. In most cases, like if it's a residential home, like, if they want me to just come out there and get answers, I mean, if it's not bad, obviously, like if it was that bad, they would want it out, because your home's supposed to be your sanctuary. You living in an environment like that where it's actually taking its toll on you mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physically. So I would think that's more of it in one of those businesses considering their haunted location where research is going on, where then like, all right, well then I'm approaching that too. I'm just going into that with my intent is to do research and to attain knowledge from the experience, because this is how they roll with that type of location. So that's just a different ballgame, really.
Yeah, that's where I think, we talk a lot on our podcast, like the difference between ghost hunting and paranormal research. We talk about that quite a bit. I mean, if I go to one of these pay to play locations, obviously at that point now I've got my ghost hunter hat on. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I'm going in there just to, do my own personal research on the location and see if any of my findings collaborate with previous teams or the next team or whatever. But I mean, we recently are about to or have accepted a case where they said straight up, I don't want you to come in and do anything other than to confirm my findings. And so, I'm going, okay, it's a residential, and, you called me freaking out and I feel terrible, but you don't want it gone. So I could provide you with research. At that point now, I'm going to put my researcher hat on. I'm going to, log everything we find. I'm going to log the atmosphere. I'm going to, do all that stuff and then just present you with a case file.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a different ball game in the present day. Because like 30, 40 years ago, I mean, you'd be lucky to find a parapsychologist in the yellow pages to try to get help. And then they're trying to chase you out of the neighborhood with pitchforks and torches. If you say your house is haunted. Now people actually want their houses to be haunted because they know it might be their claim to fame to get attention in some sort of way. So, that's what we deal with, a little bit, there's ignorance out there too. I mean, we're going to deal with that. We're human beings. There's people that approach all facets of life and careers and things like that in nature for materialistic reasons and stuff. And you're going to get a little bit of that, but it's kind of like the same principle too. It's like, even when I live stream a lot, because I think it's, a powerful thing to be able to approach the paranormal too with me and showing the power of prayer and like what I do. And I pray for spirits and I leave the spirit box on. And then if I get a vision of a white dove, which is to me, a female crossing over a white horse, and then having a voice come through the spirit box and saying, thank you, I'm going to heaven. Like that's powerful because people are watching that real time.
Right.
But it's kind of like the same thing. Like when you have a bunch of people come in your chat, you get trolls. But is it really terrible that you're having that? Well, it's really dependent on how you perceive that, because your cup is either half full or half empty. Is that some of those people are open to what you're doing, open to what you believe in, and may actually learn something. I mean, even if you're making a difference with one person or many people, even when I wrote a book, I never thought I'd read a book. But as long as one person reads that and lets them know that they're not crazy or helps them with something that's going through their life, it's still a positive ripple that's going out there into the universe. And it's really what it is. And that's all I've ever wanted to do, is make a difference. And of course, I mean, the more audience that you have, the more of a difference you can make too. I mean, it's kind of like a, it's a crapshoot really, because, you're doing it for attention, but it's a new thing, the modern day, and how people are approaching the paranormal, and everyone has their own methods of doing it. And there's a lot more of the unknown than we do know. So, I mean, I don't judge anyone with a different belief system than me or how they approach the paranormal. That's up to each individual. I just try to do it the way that I believe I'm supposed to and what I'm called to do, and then keep doing that and try to bring awareness with every person that I encounter who might be open to watching what I'm doing, how I approach it in general.
Right. Because you could be mentoring somebody somewhere. So I do want to bring up though, because you kind of walked me into it. You were recently, kind of semi-recently, on a show, 28 Days Haunted. And that, I think, was a really good example of watching three different people, or three different teams rather, with three different investigative styles. And then each person in each location had their own style of investigating too. So, like I noticed a lot of your stuff, because we did watch it. I noticed a lot of your stuff was leaning more towards that like spiritual realm, like, the prayer, the power of prayer, things like that. Then if you went over to the dry goods store, they were more like the demonologist side of everything. And then you had the other location with the two gentlemen and the young lady that were over there, that were more so really into the whole research piece and what's in here and how to, help it cross over. So I think that was interesting to watch one collaborative show with three different teams of people with multiple different investigative styles. Do you find that a lot when you are either on these TV shows or when you go to locations? Like, do you have a specific team that you roll with, or is there different people that go with you?
I never put together a team, though I'm sure I could. I mean, I basically kind of like to go out and anyone that I feel trustworthy with, that I trust to go on an investigation, I would bring them, with me. Or if I think I can handle it on my own, I would go. So it's kind of like I do bounce around with people that I trust in my circle, that I would, feel comfortable coming out with a case or an investigation, especially if it's serious. Then I'd, make sure that person's prepared. I wouldn't want something bad to happen to them as well. Because as soon as you involve yourself with a case that could be seriously dark and genuine in nature when it comes to the demonic, I mean, they'll start trying to come to you way long before you even go to the case. I mean, I'll get nighttime dreams and visions of dark things and trying to frighten me in bed before I go to some of these legitimate cases. But it's also a good thing for me too, because if I talk to a person on the phone about hearing about some of their stuff, not only is my experience and my knowledge a good thing to actually have to assess these cases and vet them, but also my intuitive ability. Like, I've been on the phone with somebody who said, this hooved creature's coming down the hallway, and my son got scratched in the shoulder, and literally I felt burning on my shoulder, and literally I got scratched on my shoulder right as she was telling me on the phone. So, there's things like that, because I'm sensitive and I'm open, is that I'm like, okay, that case is legitimate, like I can kind of decipher and have more opportunities to do so with my intuitive side, as well as my knowledge and my experience throughout the years. So that's obviously a positive thing as well.
I think that's a good thing. Definitely. Let's roll. I do want to ask about, obviously, I've been kind of hyping everybody up about your newest edition.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to ask first, though, and this is typically a question that Sean asks, is do you roll with equipment, and what's your favorite piece of equipment?
Well, I'd say my favorite piece of equipment is Gary Galka's when it comes to like spirit box. I love ITC. ITC is my favorite thing because I just want to know what's going on. I mean, I want to hear right away. I mean, bells and whistles are all great and stuff, but like actually hearing the voice of the spirit and also me too, like being sensitive. Anyone who has psychic abilities or who has some sort of discernment, you want to be validated, and that's something that I was looking That I'm my own piece of equipment. So I'm looking for myself to be validated by using some of these other pieces of equipment, whether it's the Mel meters or REM pods or bells and whistles or some of these spirit boxes, which happens a lot of the cases or investigations that I do. It's like I'll feel something and reference something, and then boom, it's like right through the spirit box. They're talking about the same thing and referencing it, and then like, okay, we're onto something. It's validating something. We got to go in that direction, and that information is becoming, more legitimate to me. So I go down that that path more so, depending on the information that we get.
Gotcha.
Yes, we just created a new application, a software that literally just came out in October. It's definitely a brand new experimental method using AI text to speech technology that just came out literally as we were trying to create the app. And we got some exciting brand new features as we constantly innovate the conceptual idea, for the future that are going to come out for the new year.
So what is the app called for everybody that's listening?
It's called SPI, which stands for Spirit Phone Innovations. You can look it up on iOS right now. It's in the Apple Store. And kind of a little homage to Thomas Edison because he allegedly had the spirit telephone. So I kind of want to throw that in there. And I had this idea about like 10 years ago. So that's really what I wanted to call it, the spirit phone, because of that. But really how it works is what the software is supposed to do is basically we're using the AI text to speech to actually analyze and look for EVPs in the audio and environment outside of human speech range. There's certain like frequencies that if a recording was going on right now and you could analyze the frequencies of my voice, we have a typical bracket of frequencies that go on and what we speak on. So Class A EVPs are considered to be outside of that cannot be us speaking. So it's basically telling the software to only look for opportunities to disseminate intelligible words within the audio and the environment. It's kind of like listening for EVPs for us and then spitting out what it thinks it hears. And that's what's going on with it, which I think is interesting. And also a lot of the limitations to the older devices, it's not limited to a small vocabulary list. It can basically say anything. And some of these new updates are going to be coming soon. There's going to be more opportunities for, translation from other languages to your primary language and things like that. So
that's cool. And I'm going to ask the number one question. I have personally promoted your app quite a bit on our podcast because after I spoke to you when we had Andy Andrews on our podcast, I went ahead and my stepdaughter has an iPhone. I'm an Android person. We have an iPhone with no service that we use for investigating. So we went ahead and downloaded on both devices. And, the number one question when I'm promoting this app to people, and prior to promoting it, I do want to throw out a disclaimer there for those that are listening. We took it to a location that we researched multiple times in Gettysburg, Rainworth Lodge. If you haven't been there, highly recommend. It's a haunted Airbnb, beautiful location. You got full access. Owners are phenomenal hosts. This location is anything shy of nothing happening. You're
general.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you're getting shadow figures, you're getting door handles, you're jiggling, you're getting knocks, you're getting actual physical things that happen.
You don't need equipment to investigate it.
You don't. So we've investigated it with literally just SPI. So we went up there November.
And a recorder.
Yep.
That's all we had.
We went up there November 14th through the 17th. I had SPI going on not one, but two devices just because I wanted to know. This is my first time using this. I want to see how it collaborated, right? So we had SPI going on two devices and we had the DR60 going just to see like what EVPs are going to match on what device, right? And the entire time we were at Rainworth, almost everything was dead smack on.
On all three.
On all three devices. So at that point, I decided to go ahead and come on our podcast and tell everybody, because we get asked quite a bit, what about phone apps? Am I a fan of a phone app? Not really. Did I start out by using a phone app? Yes. My stepdaughter that's on our team, she's 16 now, started investigating when she was 7. She came to us one day and she was like, I want to go to a cemetery. We all thought that was crazy, but not really, because we're paranormal researchers, right? All right, let's go to a cemetery. She said, I got a new app on my phone. And I'm thinking, okay, let's go let her have fun. She's 7. And that she was standing in front of a mausoleum that had a name on top that was a famous doctor from our area that created the psychiatric services that we have. And she was asking questions in front of this mausoleum, and across her app came psychiatrist. And at that point, I was like, hold on, I need to do some research on phone apps. Like, that's very weird. So I started kind of dabbling with the phone apps. Fast forwarding to now, there's about 3 I use, SPI included. And I like the fact that while it's saying listening, you can still have a conversation. Like, it's not listening to you. Unless you're holding the button down, and then Sean, that's where I was going.
Right.
Right. And the reason I'm asking is because if you ask a generalized question, the one thing I noticed is if you ask a generalized question, what is your favorite color? And I did this like 3 different times, got 3 different colors. So how can we assure the people that it's not just throwing out random colors?
I guess. Obviously you don't want that. I mean, using the technology that we're doing, I think there is like a process of elimination, something like we're using too. It's brand new. So that's what we're continuously doing with this thing, because I mean, when you're using AI, it's, it's unpredictable too. It's like you're creating a horror movie potentially. But what I've been doing is that I've been actually trying to, like you were doing with the EVP, is actually like having the spirit box on like next to the app. And when we put the SAM mode back in, which we're kind of we're just tweaking that a bit before we put it back out, you'll be able to do that and actually leave it on a table and then compare results. Because that's what I've been doing with some of mine, is that like when you get like the same words coming through the spirit box and it's coming through on the app, that just, I mean, I even talked about that, to Gary Galka about it, because I'm like, not only does that like validate potentially the application, but it also validates the spirit box, because a lot of people say, oh, it's the radio, oh, it's audio pareidolia, but think about it. If the software is doing what it's supposed to do, and it's only looking for voices that cannot be a human voice in this planet, only a dissemination of a word that cannot be us scientifically, then that validates the word that's coming through the spirit box, not only from the application. So that's why I was, again, I'm still doing experimentation, because this is all new to me. I've never created an application, but that's why I'm using other things around it. I think that's a really good thing to do, as this is brand new and we're experimenting with it, and then see what kind of results we get. Because obviously that happens with all these devices, like the spirit box, whether it's the radio or is it just a random word coming through, and things like that. But you want to consolidate those types of things and make sure that it's, legitimate. Just like, again, when I was bringing up myself, like I'm looking for something to validate what I'm picking up, because I don't want to just think it's some random information either. But, I know people are skeptical about apps too. I was using apps from the beginning when smartphones first started coming out, but with everything I know, and which actually even Bill Chappell himself said, I remember when Ghost Radar came out, it was like a very popular application. And he had said, it's basically the same concept and principle as the Ovilus, but the Ovilus actually measures the EMF, and then the spirit can manipulate the EMF, is what it's said to be able to do, and then assign it to one of the words in the database. So the phones have things like Wi-Fi and, GPS. So those types of sensors that are tapping into radars and satellites and stuff, the spirits can manipulate that to do that same principle with these applications. And I have seen results like that throughout the years using apps, and spirits can manipulate anything of that nature that's electrical. I mean, there are all these stories. I've been on cases of people saying their TV turns on, it's not plugged in, or people getting text messages from their loved ones who've actually they're not even living anymore, saying it's me. All these weird things that can happen. That's why we call it the unknown. But you just have to do your due diligence and try to experiment with it and see what kind of results you get with it. I mean, I'm open to trying anything myself, even before I even got involved with trying to create an app myself. But it's all about, experimentation. That's what's all part of paranormal research. But I'm excited about, some of the new things we're going to be tweaking with the thing, and it's only going to get better from here. But again, I think it's best to try to use other things. I remember like the first investigation I used the app, it's actually on my YouTube. And I said, actually the spirits were talking about the app. They said, can you use it on the spirit box? Like clear as day. And I'm like, okay, so let me go grab it. It was like in 4 rooms away. And I was sitting in this room, and this is live in front of a handful of people. And there's a small little set of stairs in front of me. And on the stairs, there was a cat ball. In the middle, there was a music box. And at the other doorway of the room was a millimeter. And I'm like, where's this spirit Joseph? And it goes near. And I'm just like, where? And it goes, watching, watching you. And then literally right after that, like all 3 devices went off, the cat ball, the music box, and the millimeter. So it's like things like that. It's like, okay, there's some sort of like reaction going on with multiple methods that we're using. So, again, I mean, I'm not going to say like everything comes through any app, or even the app that we've done is going to be legitimate. But again, I think it's most importantly, even when you're listening to an EVP, like you hear something and someone else hears something differently. And that's what this thing's supposed to do. It's like to try to interpret what it's hearing. But you've got to be open to the possibility of whether it's something legitimate or not. I mean, this is all experimental. I think that's just part of the process.
Sure.
Well, I do want to, before I say what I want to say, I acknowledge that Ed Odell's in here from ASPS Paranormal Adventure with Nubs, Samantha Beidelman, Lois Clark. I believe I got everybody. Chuck Whitby, he's from our team.
Mm-hmm.
And Kim Sage from Fredericksburg Paranormal all tune in. Hello, everybody. Howdy. I just wanted to make sure I took a second to acknowledge them. But I do want to say we ran several experiments with your app. I even tried to trick it. I tried to have a conversation. We just a few of them.
Trick it. I mean, your feedback's going to help us to improve it too, because I want it to obviously be the most legitimate thing that it can be. I mean, we want to get results. We want to push the envelope. But yeah,
well, this is to give you credit. On the app, I think I don't give much credit to phone apps. I'll say that I've seen some great things with them. I've had them make me a believer. With your app, I tried to trick it. And hello, Tim Wright with the Right Way Lawn Care. You need to get your grass cut. Holler at my man Tim Wright. Get your trash hauled off. But with your app, I'll give you an example. The first time we experimented with it was Rainward. I was sitting in the room and it was just spitting off all the right answers. It was naming off the owner of the house, who built the house. It was naming off everything that pertained to the property. I'm like, okay, it's too good. All right.
Right.
So I was like, it's listening to us. So I said, how many people in the room? There's no way it's going to say it's 4 people sitting here. It was 3 of us. Answer came back 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was like down to the T answering every question that we give it off. Like I said, to the house, to the property, to how many people, to how many males versus females. And it was like stuff it shouldn't have been able to answer.
Right. I was just at the Monroe house my second time there last week, and I was live, and there was a Ouija board on the table, and I never even said. I just like, what is on, what game is on the table right there, and it said Ouija like right after that. So obviously that's something that's visual in the room. That's obviously can't do that. So I mean, I think those are the tests that you got to do to try to push the envelope and make sure that it's legitimate. Again, this is a brand new experimental method, and it's only going to get better from here. We definitely pushed it out quickly, but exciting. There is some results going on. We're getting some good stuff. So we can only, again, just keep chiseling the statue, so to speak, to improve on that idea from here. And like some of the new features that some ideas that I came up with, it's going to be something that's never been seen before. That, I mean, I myself would just be like, oh my God, I'm so excited to use that to bring kind of like the investigation stuff to the next level of what spirits can do and manipulate to make themselves be heard or seen.
And mind you, I'm not the one that ever pushes phone apps. I've seen them do great stuff, but this one really had me a true believer. I operate, again, when I use a phone app, it's always on a phone with no service that's on it. It's never on a phone. And even the phone's still in airplane mode when I use it. So I don't see how there's any way it could have answered how many people was in the room, how many men versus women there were, the owners of the house, the brother of the house. I mean, it was answering like everything to the T about the property, how many people were there. So, in my opinion, it's a great app.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's just going to get better from here. I mean, whatever quirks or things that we have with it, if there are any, it's just this has happened so fast for me. I never thought I'd have my own software, and it's a different ball game. I mean, I have people like building. I basically have to tell them what to do, but it's a whole like thing when they're looking at things through codes and things like that. And we're using new technology. This is brand new. This just came out literally as we're building the app. AI has been out for like a couple. 2-3 years, but AI text-to-speech technology specifically has only been out for months. And there are some glitches and things that are within the this new technology, but again, it can only get better from here, and it's something that's never been done. I never seen anybody mess with AI technology and ITC, so to speak. The only thing I've seen is the visual thing, which I think is on the other app, GhostTube, that GhostSeer, and I've used the filter on TikTok when I'm live, and I've had some amazing results. In some cases, again, these spirits can manipulate anything that's electrical. So there's an opportunity there. So there's a factor of manipulation and also what it's supposed to do in the end when it comes to the app. So we just got to make it easier for them, so they can give us more of a definitive sign or a piece of evidence that we can say, okay, this is something legitimate.
So Kim is asking, can you repeat what the app is one more time? She tuned in a little bit late.
It's SPI. It's available on iOS right now. It stands for Spirit Phone Innovations. We're working on some more updates for the app, and it should be out in Android in the first quarter the next year in 2025.
And that was the next one. I was just about to go there. So
I have an Android too. I had to buy an iPad for my own app because we went out.
I was like so upset when I found out it was only for Apple. So then I was like, wait a minute. Naya has an iPhone. We're going to totally use that.
I just so happen to have an iPhone for another app that I have to use it for.
Yeah. So the funny thing is like these kids are little broke best friends, right? So she's like, yeah, I'll download it, but I don't have any money on my Cash App. And I'm like, all right, here's $15. Like, let me go ahead and get the app or whatever.
So you made $30 off.
I wish it was $30. I mean, with Apple, what they take out, I mean, with
yeah.
I mean, and this was very pricey app to create. I ain't no small. I've a couple people that invested some finances into it. I mean, it's already costing more money too. And what we want to continuously do with it, it's really expensive. So
well, it's right up there. Like I've got, like I said, I use 3 apps, SPI being one. I think is it Necrophonic $14.99?
Yeah,
and then the other one, Spirit Talkers, I think $9.99.
I think $2 that one.
Oh, maybe that was the $4.99 one.
But it can work because the spirits can like manipulate that, and it can make sense. I mean, but I want this to ultimately be such the most in-depth thing that doesn't have any limitations to what it can say. I want it to be able to say every curse word, every nasty word you can think of, because this is how these spirits talk. I don't have anything, because if we're limiting the abilities to what the spirits can say, then we're also limiting our research and the amount of evidence that we attain at a location. And that's really what I wanted for this as an overall purpose of the app.
Well, the Haunted Octagon Mansion at 585 in Whitville said they're going to try the app this weekend for their investigation/tour. We were telling Debbie about it. We co-hosted Dinner with a Ghost in Gettysburg. Was it last weekend, a couple weekends ago? And we were telling Debbie and John about it. So they're going to try it this weekend for their investigation. Definitely let us know, Debbie. Like, shoot me a message. I'm curious what you guys get over there as well.
Now, I will say this, and shout out to the Haunted Octagon Mansion, by the way. They're our friends. But, a lot of people complain about the price of phone apps, which kind of bugs me because people will pay $200 or
$600 for an obelisk.
$600 for an obelisk or $300 for a piece of equipment, but won't pay $10 for a phone app or $14.
I'll tell you why that's probably the issue, because most apps are inexpensive. Most of them are not go above $5. So in their minds, they have to pay for more of that. But I mean, look, one of my favorite apps that I've used over the years is definitely Phasmabox. I wish it would come out for the phones because that was such a great app. It only worked on Windows, and I was buying a Windows tablet to try to use that app. But that was always $15, $16. But if it has the ability to bring legitimate good evidence on an investigation, to me would be well worth way more than $15. I mean, Echovox was $20, I think, when that first came out, still is, and that was a lot of people were using that for many years. But yeah, of course, $600 for an Ovilus that has the same 2,000 words for the last 16 years. I mean, comes in a nicer.
I was gonna say, like, I'm not
like that. That should if that thing had about 50,000 words, I think it'd be worth the $600. But like the same thing that's been out, like that's why I want to have something that can say anything. We want the spirits to be able to say anything, because if it just says demon or just the and like door, it's like it's not enough. With the technology we have these days, we should be advancing it and taking frog leaps in the directions of innovations rather than circling that same cycle and drain of what we're doing with some of the devices. So I wanted to have something that has the chance to really push the envelope of how we can innovate ITC in a way that's using modern technology, and especially like the opportunity to use AI. It's scary because it's like next thing you know, we'll have like a Tesla robot talking to the spirit, and then the evil spirit will possess the robot. I don't want the AI to possess our app either. It's a sentient being. And I'm learning about AI because I just know a little bit about it, but it's like all connected to this one thing. It's kind of creepy. It's like some Terminator shit. So.
All I know about AI is they make my public events look really good when I do the text. Because otherwise I would be like, come join us at a local cemetery for an investigation. That would be great. But when I put in the AI talk to text or whatever, man, they make my event sound like I'm a genius. So that's the only time that I've ever used AI beside SPI. But I was going to say something. Oh, the Ovilus I'm not a fan. We've had it for over a year now.
We've had it for a while. I had 2 of them. I sold one of them.
And I just have never gotten anything intelligent. The one time I did, I'm chalking it up to a fluke just because,
it's never been
accurate. Not one time.
Some people swear by it.
The main reason why we got it, to be honest with you, was prior to us getting our EDI box. We got it for the footstep detector that's on the vibration detector. We were on an investigation and cat balls were flying off a flat surface. And, at the time, we didn't have anything that could detect like any vibration or anything like that. So we were taking like Sean chews tobacco. So we were taking like his dip can and like setting it there to see if it would roll off, And so that's honestly like the main reason why we got it was for that vibration detector. I've dabbled with like the yes or no on there. Again, I think that's kind of iffy, but
that'll say yes or no if you answer the question or not. Like, it'll just say yes or no.
So I don't know. I'm definitely interested in the updates that you have coming though, because
I want this thing to also like start spitting out sentences, and like some of the experimentation we were doing with some of the updated abilities we were using in the house in between, and it was really wild, man. Out of nowhere, I was talking to the owner about God and my spirituality and faith, and Amy, who's actually the president, who I had helped me under the company to assign developing this thing. She was there, and she had this beta version on, and I was talking about God and was just listening, and while I was saying that, out of nowhere it said, "I hate that effing SOB." And I'm just like, or I picked up psychically that there's a spirit that loves the owner, protects her, almost looks like her, very like over her and follows her everywhere. And she's like, all right, I'm taking off for the night. And literally our beta version of Sam mode literally was saying, tell her I love her, I love her, I love her, like over and over again. And I'm like, that's the type of stuff that people get super excited about. And that's what I want. I want to really get it to something where it's just like really wild, kind of like a spirit box, but in a way where it's definitive and it's saying intelligent words according to what's happening or did happen or will happen.
Well, I think that it's interesting to dive that deep into it solely because, like, it's no secret. Sean is a Black paranormal investigator. So you can imagine the things that come across a spirit box and the things that we picked up on EVP. So I do think that it's very important to have the app wide open to anything because, we investigate a lot of 1800s locations where a Black man should not be in the plantation house. Like he should not be there. And the spirits know that and they are very vocal about it. So I think it's important to have something, that will allow them to communicate any way that they possibly want. Recently, I've noticed an influx of just a lot of fuck off, bitch, get the F out, like things like that coming across.
I don't want the app to be saying that, to be honest with you, because I'm like, if they say it, I want them to be able to say it. I want it to be treated like whatever an EVP is, and it's just disseminating what it thinks the spirit's saying. I want it to be able to say anything. And if it says something like muerto, I want the app to ultimately say, okay, if I highlight the primary language is English, and it says, okay, it just said muerto, here's the translation to your primary language. Like that's going to be super exciting for anybody because then, there's that argument where everybody else says like, oh, why is it, the spirit speaking English in every, country of the world. And I do have a theoretical answer about that. I mean, think about it. You're thinking about the limitations of human beings and what we can think about learning language. But in that world, there is no limitations to energy. They might be able to actually translate and speak in English if they truly want to as a spirit. We don't know. I mean, that's a different ballgame, but nonetheless, to actually have that ability, if you go to like a Spanish cemetery or you're somewhere where Latin was spoken or things like that, I mean, that's really exciting to me. Just me as an investigator outside of that, not even be involved with it. I would love to have something like that. And obviously I think anybody else would too. So that's where I'm trying to like take something like, all right, let's just keep pushing it, innovate it, keep experimenting with it, improve it, and see what happens from there.
Well, Paul just touched on something that it kind of, it was funny. I was thinking it as he commented. That right there makes it real. When I hear a spirit box curse or call me the N-word or something like that, that validates it to me. A lot of people look at me like, you don't get offended. I'm like, first of all, I'm not.
How are you going to get offended by a ghost?
I'm a country music musician. I don't get offended very easily.
Right.
When I hear it cursing at me or saying things that it's never going to make it on radio and I hear the N-word, it validates it so much for me. If I hear anything cursing at me or saying negative stuff,
any curse, you can't be on the radio. Yeah,
right. So when I get called the N-word through a spirit box or on EVP and stuff like that, I know that can't be something that's mistaken. Especially if you're in a room with 5 or 6 people hear it. So if you have an app that does openly, that's what I love about what your idea with that is, that it's that open to say anything. That's what you want as an investigator. You want to hear it.
That's what I ultimately want to have this. When I have this thing up to par and I'm like, okay, this is like the definitive basic version. Then we can go on to these other pro feature ideas I have, which are going to be super wild and exciting too. But I just, I want this to be, something that, okay, this is truly something that we can bring to the table to bring validation and another piece to the puzzle and really push the envelope of ITC and communicating with spirits in general. So, that's what we should be doing with technology.
Absolutely. So I know we're kind of running out of time, but do you have any like upcoming shows that you're going to be featured on, or are you just kind of doing your own thing right now, live streaming a lot?
I am live streaming a lot. I'm working on trying to create my own little YouTube series on my page about approaching and helping people and souls and having a name for it. And I kind of like circling some ideas about that. But I am part of another couple of documentaries that'll be on scarenetwork.tv. I've done obviously a lot of documentaries on there. We did a residential home up in Virginia. And then we did a documentary on the Cabin on 360, another really cool location that Ryan actually owns. Yep. I think that'll be coming out next. So that'll be coming out on there soon. But other than that, I'm just trying to spread the word with the app while we're still innovating this thing and making sure that, hearing about from people's feedback and going out there being busy and being heard and seen. And then, I'd like to, push the envelope with trying to help people wherever possible and do what I feel like I'm called to do.
Awesome. I love it.
We're also fans of the music too. Any shows or any events you're going to play at?
I'd love to. Like, there's still another song I didn't even release yet that I probably should just have a little video put together for it and put up on iTunes. But the paranormal kind of took over. I'd love to get back to playing shows. I haven't played one in a while, man, and it's definitely a little hole that's in me. Like, it's because that was my first passion before the paranormal. But I'd love to go back to Nashville and record some more too. But I definitely see that happening at some point. I definitely, the music thing, and obviously 28 Days Haunted turned into a song and that whole thing. You guys know about that?
I didn't know that it turned into a song.
That's like my biggest experience on the whole show. And unfortunately, they told me there wasn't enough time. But that was, you're going to have to look it up on YouTube. Just type in Mercy 28 Days Haunted, and it tells the evidence, show evidence you didn't see on the show and what truly happened, with how a profound connection I have with that woman. I tapped into her loss of her captain. And I had my guitar with me because I didn't have any phone, TV, or internet while I was there, and playing a song and come up with song ideas. And I told everyone I'm going to write a song about her loss because I feel so connected every day. And in the end, I had this crazy, profound psychic experience one night, and I started to like sob and stuff. And I had to go outside, and this whole thing happened. And I realized psychically that she knew about the song. I was going to write a song about her, and I had a recorder going. The next day, I realized she was humming the melody to the song that I was humming around the house, playing the guitar. She was watching me the entire time. And I ended up recording this song. It's in Nashville, and her humming's part of the song. And some of the words in the first part of the song are words that I believe that she wrote on a letter about the loss of her love, like she was writing it to me. It's truly the most beautiful, emotional, and sad paranormal experience I've ever had. And it's an important message to show how, how powerful love is, and how life lives on way after death. And definitely watch it. Look it up, Mercy 28 Days Haunted. And that's what the song is called, Mercy, because her name is Mercy Adelaide. And it was dedicated to her. Her spirit knew about it, and she's actually part of the song as well with her humming. But you'll hear the humming and the whole story and evidence you didn't see on the show, unfortunately. What actually took place with me. It's about a 19-minute video, and it's a music video while I'm on the beach.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. That's going to be cool. I know, like, I do remember your emotional connection there. Like the middle of the night, you were like, I got to go out to the cemetery or whatever. Something's telling me to go this way. So yeah, I do remember that. So I definitely want to see, especially unreleased evidence. I think that's going to be cool.
So when you come out to Lynchburg, you can bring your guitar. We can jam out a little bit.
All right. Yeah, absolutely.
We can hook up like a paranormal show, like Sean and Sean. That would be crazy. Yeah. So if everybody wants to look you up, what are your socials? Because I know you've got Sean Austin Music, and then you've got other socials.
I mean, most of my handles are Sean D. Austin, like it says on the screen. Okay. Otherwise, YouTube, Sean Austin Paranormal. I did start a new TikTok account because I think my thing got shadow banned. So I started a new account. I just call it Sean Austin SPI. That's where I've been going live on there. But YouTube, I've been live as well. I go live on both now when I'm doing investigations, which I'll be live again this week using the app and experimenting with that and all sorts of stuff. So shoot me a message. And if you guys have any questions about anything, shoot me a message, and we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Sean, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight. After I end the stream, if you could just hang back for like 2 seconds, that would be awesome. But for everybody that tuned in, I appreciate y'all. Each week we stream here live and on StreamYard, Facebook, YouTube, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week's going to be an open discussion because it is Christmas Eve. And what better way to spend your holidays than with Sean and Courtney? So until next Tuesday, you guys, we will see you on the other side.